your throat. You can't breathe. You can't scratch your throat. You're taking inhalers.
You're in Illinois.
What happened? Did you go to rehab?
Yeah.
I'm down to 2 puffs a day.
He got his 2-day coin.
It's actually, and that's all just him being stuffed up because his sponsor said, you got to tell your story. And he cried and he got it all out. This is just a residual mucus from crying. But yeah,
I can't just always rely on the Navage, even though that thing's great too. Flush it out. But, you know, you got to. I got so many things going on, and then the weather changes constantly.
Dude, you're in Illinois. You don't even have any fucking trees up here. You just come down to South Carolina, dude. It's like literally, I can do a bump of fucking pollen off the hood of my truck. I'm like, are you kidding me? Look at this. It's crazy.
I'd be like Bubble Boy from Seinfeld. I'd be in that thing because I couldn't even fucking handle it.
Moops. Anyway.
And then, is that Scott walking around with a scuba tank on? Yeah, just let him be.
Definitely makes for some challenging editing in podcasting because, like, Scott doesn't sound.
He's got to move the mask to talk.
Chris is coughing all the time, like,
and you hear the suction.
No, I'm good. And then you know with that, and then I was showing off my Bucky's chapstick because chapstick's the other one. I'm like, Napoleon,
I'm sure that's a healer.
Chapstick. I've got 800 chapsticks in every car in my pocket, and you know I got a backup one in my bag. It's like an addiction.
Yeah, but those are Bucky's flavored hot dog, beef jerky.
They sell it to you in the fudge section. It's just like it's. Do you want the peanuts?
Why is that guy eating?
Oh no, sir, I have an allergy to peanuts.
Why are you in the car? Like, and I'm just biting chunks of the.
Look at that poor kid
out and biting it off. Like what you're supposed to put on your lips, bro.
Look at that poor special boy. He's eating crayons. No, that's his chapstick.
Thought it was astronaut food, you know, kind of a thing. Right. You know what I mean?
Next time
he's actually putting it on his hot dog. Like, he's like shaking it.
Who has ketchup flavored chapstick? This guy does right here.
Right. I don't know about you, Chris, but I'm chapstick adverse. I never really liked that greasy shit all over my lips.
I look like I look like Billy Madison, where Steve Buscemi lays back on the couch and puts that pink lipstick on, like next to my list.
Scratching names off a list.
Well, they used to have like I said, a peanut butter flavored one from Buc-ee's, but then it like was being used like Ozempic's being used right now. It was not its intended use, but it looked like a collagen injection because it would just swell your lips like to the crazy point. It's like,
you won't die. You'll just swell a little bit.
Next time I come on, I'm gonna use Vaseline. I'm just gonna have that shiny ring around my mouth. Like, what's up with your lighting? No,
what is chapping your lips so badly?
It's the weather. It's the weather. I know where this is going. It's the weather.
I don't know if that's been. I got to chat GPT that.
Yeah. Let's keep it. Let's just blame it on the weather. All right. Yeah, we'll keep it at the weather. Keep it at the weather.
Carrie would punch me, but I'd be like, it's kind of, when we're kissing, it's kind of prickly. Can you fix that? Idiot. You're an idiot. Seriously, my lovely wife, she puts up with so much stupid shit, but she's the best.
Hey, well, they all do. They have to. Listen to the show, for God's sake. Imagine that 24/7. And it doesn't stop after the show, folks. I just keep ignorant going. Going.
It's just a slice of our life.
So much material for this. It's tolerance of, if you can actually stay married in law enforcement, you know what I mean? True. This is a good show for that. Like, if you wanted to come on and like get marriage counseling from us, here's what worked for us, the three of us.
I don't suggest some of the stuff, but
right. Yeah. It's a little obscure at times, but it works.
Yeah. Right.
Well, they have to understand it.
So I want to, now that I've discussed some of my weird addictions like that, like that show on TBS.
Your chapped lips from the weather.
Eat mattresses or anything like that. But in the actual world of law enforcement, I just want to talk about this quick because it was, it's a story that everybody's seen. This guy that threw the IED into this crowd at this protest in New York last week. And the one thing, one of the things that came out of this, obviously the story about what happened, but this NYPD chief, Aaron Edwards, who has gone like viral on the internet because they have this picture of him jumping over one of the barricades to like get in the fight,
Like he didn't even like he just like one hopped it, bro.
I know.
That's crazy.
It's a great picture, he's like one arm hopping the thing sideways, and I'm like, that's That's impressive. So, and you figure, as a NYPD chief, he's probably been around for a while, so he's probably not the youngest guy in the world. And it was just one of those things along the lines of, you see that and you're thinking to yourself, hey man, this is great. I know that he wasn't the actual one that grabbed the guys or whatever. And so that leads me into what I've seen over the last couple of days is people giving this guy shit and kind of busting on him and saying, oh, it was the actual officers that were there on the street to tackle the guy, grab the guy, this and that. And I'm like, okay, I get it. It's always a team effort, right? I mean, he's not showboating out there that he's some great guy. Somebody just happened to get a picture of this guy, right? And it just shows you, it's here we are. They caught these guys right there. Thankfully, nobody was severely injured because obviously this could have been way worse. And yes, the officers were on top of this guy, chased him down. Great job. But it's just one of those things. We're always given leadership type stuff shit and criticizing, not always criticizing leadership, but these things that people become leaders and all of a sudden, they're not really involved anymore, but they want to critique everything that everybody else does. And this is one of those examples where it's just a picture. It just shows that this guy, he's out there with his people. He's not hesitating, right? He's probably, again, he's been around a long time, I'm sure, and he jumps the fence and he's ready to get after it with the rest of his guys. And then we're going to bust on him and say, oh, he didn't actually put the hands on it. Who gives a shit? He was ready to go, man. He was ready. He was ready to go. And if it would have gone really bad, he would have been right there in with his guys that would have had to experience that. So,
and the guy was really, really humble about it. I watched an interview of him, they talking to him, and he was like kind of humorous about it. And the first thing he said was, let me start with the idea is I am just so glad that I was actually physically able to clear that barricade because that picture could have been something completely.
And he didn't lose his hat.
And then he went into immediately talking about the team effort and how NYPD is trying to protect that city. When the guy at the top, the mayor, has pretty much said, I have no value for an NYPD. Like despite the great work that agency's done over time, it hasn't been perfect, anything like that. But that was huge. I mean, like they immediately got after it, and like. Of our own people kind of complaining about that. Again, like we complain about shit too. You go back to episode 219, sex, lies, and overtime. You could have a leader like that running you from NYPD. The guy that was using his power to, influence his pants open in his secret, sex room, whatever the hell that was. But you got this guy jumping a barricade and we're bitching about this dude. And nowhere near the outcry occurred from that guy. It's like, hey folks, like I said, we have an ocean of victory, but we find the droplet of fucking failure. Like, oh, well, these are the guys early to, yeah, you're right. But again, like leadership is so like desperate in our world. The guy does it and we're going to criticize him. Come on.
Right.
I mean, we're our own worst
enemy. Guys some props.
Well, what's been Tommy going to call this a bomb fight like he did the snowball fight? Oh, no, they were just throwing bombs at each other. It's totally fine.
That's your real leadership in New York right now. Because we work for elected officials. That's your real leadership in New York, and you're going to find fault in this, chief. Come on, guys. Like, look, when there's some fault to find, we're the first guys to kind of bring it up. We don't spare people things about our profession, but that was stupid. Stupid.
Yeah, it was. But now with Edwards, what I would do, I would buy I would get that picture and put on a pair of pajamas, like jams for his whole entire family for Christmas.
Right.
That's what I do. Hey, I'm not bragging, but here.
But I am.
If I was the chief and I had the kind of power that he did, I'm going to go, all right, you motherfuckers want to complain about this shit? Here's what we're going to do. It's now part of a physical fitness requirement that you got to clear the barricade.
Right. Can you imagine?
And keep your damn hat on, too. Half these guys wouldn't be able to show up with the hat because they don't even know where the damn thing's at. You know what I mean? So stop your fucking complaining. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. One of the other things that happened this week that I'm really proud of because I come from that world was it's a terrible tragedy, don't get me wrong. And it is clearly something that we're continuing to contend.
It's great, but wait a minute, I have to tone this down. But go ahead.
This is the dichotomy of our world. We have to take such pride in such horrific and tragic events as part of the warrior class. This thing at Old Dominion University, where this terrorist came in and killed an instructor. And then the ROTC cadets that were there at ODU, that detachment, whatever it is, and I don't know what it is, but this is real. They subdued the guy and killed him.
Yeah.
Rumor had it that they stabbed him to death. I mean, you want to talk about going old school in the military? Straight up, like, we haven't done trench warfare since the Pacific. You know what I mean? And then prior to that, World War II. It's like you're going back in time, and this idea that these millennials or whatever this generation's called now couldn't rise to a situation. I mean, when you were with the unit, like, they would get these things called battle streamers, and they would attach it to the unit flag, and you would carry it and be like, the 82nd had 1 million of them. These big units or whatever that, like, ODU should get one for the war on terror. Those kids, like, this could be like literally a situation where, a cadet, a goofball ROTC cadet, because that's what the rest of the military thinks of ROTC. I'm not lying. I came from it and I heard it. Those kids should get the Congressional Medal of Honor for doing what they did there. Like, literally, like, to go from, I'm a student, I'm sitting here, I'm watching a guy get killed, a colonel get killed, a lieutenant colonel get killed, and we got to take action. I mean, that's something that we should be like, just like,
I didn't even get my uniform yet.
Right, exactly. Like, I'm a third lieutenant. You know what I mean? And God, I hope I don't have a piss test after this thing. Because I mean, like, but I'm joking about that. But it's like, I mean, like, you think to yourself, this is what we're, because of this passivity with what we've done, this is what we've left young people to have to deal with. And again, I know this sounds sick, but some of us have to rise at times to do this stuff. And these kids, absolutely, that is a very intimate thing to have to kill somebody.
Especially with a knife.
Even if it's not knife, even if it's not, even they had to subdue this guy and kill him because that's what they felt they needed to do. Look,
that's barehanded.
But like,
that's
idea that
up.
Now these little fragile things that have to be counseled are, okay, now, oh my God, because this guy, we're going to have to do this and do that. But the bottom line is, we should be like, hey, thank you for being men.
Yes.
Or warriors. Maybe there were women there, for all I know. But the bottom line is, like, I saw that and I was like, tragedy, tragedy, tragedy. We're seeing all of this stuff going on since the Iran war started, the war with Iran started, I should say. But I was like, wow, holy crap, man. That is like, you're going to go into your unit and be, LT, what'd you do? And I'd be like, wait a second.
Kill the guy during a lecture.
Yeah, barehanded, by the way.
And it was weird because they just happened to be doing a class on the history of bayonets that and they were passing one around the room to show.
They better watch out. Pete Hegseth is going to show up there and make him do one of those insane PT sessions with them. You know what I mean? Like, damn. Anyway.
I can't squat this much.
Right. Anyway.
Yeah, that was crazy. And
but that's the thing, you never know.
They handled the guy. They definitely handled it, and it's
right.
Well, that's one of the things that
they didn't allow the tragedy to grow. I mean, they did what they needed to do to neutralize it and stop it, and that will prepare them well for the work they're about to go into. Whether people want you to believe that or not, hats off to them for taking tragedy. And I think, having served, I would tell you that colonel's, although he passed, I'm sure he's looking down, going, "I'm so proud of those young men and women or whoever did that,
or whatever,
for doing exactly what we're here for. This is what we face, and now it's here on our soil." And good stuff.
But see, I think that's the other thing is, you got to think of, like, where, like, this whole, like, what would possess you to go into a room full of military people in regards to, was it JROTC or cadets? Like, hey, I'm going to go cause some havoc in a room full of warriors. That's really a good idea. Like, I just don't, I have a feeling that, I mean, obviously besides the mental health, he was like, the world's a bunch of, sissies anyway. They're not going to do anything. Yeah, they're soft. Well, guess what? Good for you guys. Sorry you got to live with that, but way to act for sure.
Yeah, but speaking of mental health related issues, that's what we came here to talk about today. So, the mental health crisis people know we have in the United States. Nobody knows it better than first responders, ER staff, things like that. But the police are the first people here. Like, back when I was a kid, people were institutionalized, and there was people that they hired that weren't necessarily, let's say, mental health professionals as much as they were muscles. And the movies always portrayed those guys that were wearing the white coats with the short sleeves, so you could see their big guns, like their big arms, things like that. And they were the guys that came in, like, watch a movie like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. They had to put some, like, habeas corpus on people and get them under control. Well, now a lot of those people are out on the street, meaning the mentally ill, and they're not regulated. They're not taking their medication and things like that. But this is stuff that has been laid at the feet of the police officers, and like Scott talked about with crisis intervention training.
Mhm.
A recent poll came out and said 20% of the people in the United States only have faith in the Supreme Court and judges. I still think it is one of the most important aspects of our work, particularly in law enforcement, because they're the ones that make rhyme and reason what's going on. We've not seen a lot of reason as of late in a lot of situations involved in this, but there's just one court case that recently came out that Scott's going to get into here from the 6th District that kind of helps police, and I think in a lot of ways. So, Screw, you want to take it?
Yeah, this is a case that came out of Ohio, and what it involves is ADA, American with Disability Act accommodations, and where that ties in with safety risks or response that is needed by law enforcement. So this goes back to a 2022 incident where this guy by the name of Dustin Booth, he'd never been treated for any kind of mental illness, but was obviously having some kind of episode, and things were escalating. And the police were called because he had over several days barricaded himself in his house, and he'd come to the door holding a revolver and making disturbing statements, wrote all over himself with marker. I mean, obviously some kind of mental health crisis episode. And so, what they did was, initially after responding, they decided to kind of pull back because you run that risk of engaging somebody if you don't have to. And just quick side note to this, I actually had an experience like this several years ago, almost the same experience, not the outcome, but the initial experience of this, where someone was barricaded in their home, having a mental health crisis, had a firearm. We went to the house. You had SRT people there. You were trying to talk with them, social workers, trying to negotiate them, see if we could get them to go to the hospital. And ultimately, none of those things worked. And we had to just kind of back away from it. And that's a hard thing to get used to as a cop if you've been around for a while, because we go back to the days of when we started, where it was, hey, there's a mental health call. This guy's going to get pinned down to a gurney and he's going to the hospital, and we're done here, and that we've come a long way in how we respond to these things. So that was just a quick side thing, because I've been there, and it was the very first time you go through something like that. Again, if speaking from prior experience of how it used to be handled, it's a very, you feel like you're there to do something, and
because we're problem solvers.
Right. But in the long run, what you're doing is not forcing a confrontation. And so that's the same kind of thing that happened here. However, as this continued on, this Booth guy, a friend came to visit him. The two got something to eat, and then they decided to leave the house in the friend's truck for whatever reason. And this Booth guy also took the revolver with him. So now these guys are out and about, and I guess maybe they'd been watching the house or doing something along these lines, and they decided to stop the car because they were trying to take this guy. This is where it gets into the reason for detention. But what was happening here was they were stopping him to try to see if they could get him into a mental health facility. Ultimately, he fights with his buddy over the gun in the truck. He gets out of the truck with the gun. They send a dog at him to try to get him. That doesn't work. Officers take him down. Ultimately, he points the revolver at the officers, and they have to shoot and kill him. And so it turned into this whole thing. So his wife sues, and she didn't challenge the use of lethal force, but what she challenged was what she called the lead up decisions and alleged failure to provide ADA accommodation to this guy leading up to this. And so this goes to the thing about de-escalation, and that they're trying to say, oh, well, you didn't do enough to try to de-escalate the situation. And people need to understand that everything you do as a cop is de-escalation. You're doing that in various forms every single day in your job, whether it's trying to calm somebody down if you stop them and have to write them a traffic ticket, it's being on a domestic, it's you name it. You go to a fight, you're at a bar, you're trying to calm people down. People think that we're just walking in and trying to stir everybody up and crack heads and arrest people. everything you do in this job, they teach it to you in the academy. You learn at the
Right.
academy how to
Doing that for
de-escalate
decades now.
for decades, right? And so while I'm not knocking what they're calling de-escalation training, but what's happening is that people are starting to see the phrase de-escalate like it's, I'm Wizzo on the Bozo show, like doody 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 doody, like you need to de-escalate him, like it's a
Yeah.
thing that I take out of my pocket. You
right,
need to,
yeah.
or it's some kind of, remember when they called it verbal judo? It's the same.
right.
These things that they call police work, and
You got to
de-escalate.
repeat the question.
Right. And de-escalate is not a thing. It's a process. And it doesn't always work, unfortunately. I mean, you could be the best talker to people, and sometimes that ain't just gonna, it's just not gonna happen.
But they just put a fancy label on it because that when you look for a good policeman or police woman or whatever, what do you look for? Somebody that could interact and talk with people when they're at their worst. So we've been doing this for years. That's part of the whole process. I mean, you could pass all the tests and all this other stuff, but when you're on the street and your field training officer or your partners are looking at you and you're trying to talk somebody down, like, and you say anything, like I told a guy that wanted to kill himself one time that I had a gay brother, and I understand that it's hard to tell your parents, because that's what he ultimately wanted to kill himself for. Mm-hmm. Is that he had a hard time telling his parents. But you say stuff and you have to think on your feet. But we've been doing that ever since police work began. They just put a fancy label on it, and it's part of what you need to do. Some people are better than others, but I just think, but at some point you got to take action.
Mm-hmm. And that's what ultimately what the appellate court decided here in this is that an accommodation is not reasonable, and because that's what we're always being based on, is reasonableness. And it's not reasonable if it requires more than a moderate modification or would fundamentally alter the activity. So meaning they were being reasonable. They were trying to de-escalate. They were not trying to force a confrontation. And let me be clear, because I maybe left a little bit of this out, but when he got out of the truck with the gun, he was walking into a public place and towards businesses. And so now it becomes basically
the sanctity of life.
Don't have to change their tactics in order to protect themselves and public safety. And so, yes, they did do all this thing, and that's what they're trying to say. But ultimately, it fell under the realm of exigent circumstances, and they had to take action. So they say, and what this says it further in here is the ADA does not require officers to take additional risks. When a subject objectively poses a safety threat to officers or the public, accommodations that would require a slower, softer, or less controlled tactics can be deemed unreasonable as a matter of law. And that's what happened here.
Right. And I guess at some point we have to, when do we stop? And where do we start looking at people going, okay, yes, maybe he has a mental issue, or like the whole snowball thing in New York or whatever. Like, at what point do we have to say, you know what? There's a line you have to draw in the sand to take action. We swore to protect you and uphold the Constitution. At some point, the talking just doesn't. Talking forever just isn't going to solve the problem. Sometimes you have to go hands on, and sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and that's what people employ us for. But where does that end in the future? Like, I mean, there's all kinds of different tactics. Like you said, we had to back off sometimes, not to force a confrontation, and I get all that, and that's all tactics. But at some point, like, why was there even a lawsuit allowed? The guy was walking into a public place with a revolver. Like, it just amazes me that when I grew up, part of the reason I never spent a day in jail, because I knew there was consequences. Mm-hmm. If I didn't do what I was told, there were consequences, whether it's a punch in the mouth, whatever it is, or I'm carrying a lawnmower by myself downstairs, whatever. Mm-hmm. Right. But there was consequences. Yeah. Like, what happened to you? Is that a tattoo? No, I burned myself on the lawnmower exhaust, Right. But I just, we have to come to a full circle again and realize that there are consequences for your actions. And as sad as it is, yeah, they're people's sons, there's people's daughters, whatever. But there's no excuse anymore. I mean, I think I knew about the age of 4. It was wrong to steal, or it was wrong to kill somebody, or whatever, and there were consequences for those actions. To continue to make up excuses, and I think that, to me, I think they use the mental health, like you said, Scott, as a crutch because everybody has an episode or whatever.
Right. And part of this, one of the things, speaking of that they always, and they talk about the lawsuit trying to kind of reframe what the narrative was of this, and part of what the court said was that they evaluated non-lethal force versus severity of a crime, and what they said was that mental health seizures are not evaluated with the same severity of crime emphasis that fits criminal arrests. And in this particular case, what the question became was whether the subject's condition created danger and whether the force was reasonably necessary to eliminate that danger. So that's, I think, what people think, because they say, well, he's not even committing a crime. He's just,
Right.
he was committing some crimes, but just say generally, like,
Right.
they're not committing a crime. So why did you have to use this force that you did? And what they're saying in this decision is that those two don't align exactly. A mental health situation is not the same as, hey, there's a guy doing a bank robbery and he's coming, and I'm going in, or he's coming out, and I got to use what kind of force is necessary to stop this bank robbery. The mental health thing, and this is, I think I would consider it a challenge for law enforcement because it's changing so much. We're looking at mental health so many different ways. Unfortunately, there's so many people dealing with mental health problems that there's just more and more and more of these scenarios all the time. And unfortunately, there's going to be times where it's going to end in a use of force, a confrontation. Like you said, Chris, you can't talk your way out of everything, unfortunately. And you do everything that you can to try to make it not end this way. Unfortunately, there are going to be times that it's going to end this way, and officers need to know where they fit into this and what is reasonable.
Well, the case we're talking about is Booth versus Lazara out of the Sixth Circuit, which kind of is, well, it's based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. It covers the Kentucky, Tennessee, Southern Ohio area. It's, it obviously could be challenged further to go to the Supreme Court with this, but this ruling this high it's kind of hopeful in the realism with, what you've seen a lot with the appointees of judges. They're very political animals now. They're not people that are prudent jurists, that it seems, and that's what's, hyper sensationalized. The executive branch, police, have long been tasked with the woes of society that the legislative branch cannot solve. The judicial branch cannot insert itself in sooner until someone challenges it in court and presents it to that point. It's amazing that some things like this have not happened prior to this to kind of like set this, but in the vacuum, like Scott was talking about, civilians are hearing this term, well, you didn't de-escalate. Like they want us to come there with these, outer vest carriers, social workers, while we're trying to de-escalate, peacekeeper kind of thing. Like there's a video that I watched during the course of this, and again, there's one video that I saw, but it was like an illustration of like what we've talked about on this show. And at some point, you have to use force. Well, the woman officer that was responding, the woman police officer, was in really, like Scott says, showing that you're ready to deal with things. You may be mentally ill, you may have a mental episode, but if I look at you and I go, I think I can take you, that mental illness is only going to enhance the idea that I think I can, overpower you. She goes in, she tries to, grab him. It doesn't work. He pulls away. The guy's just kind of a string bean dude, but he's a grown man. He's got no shirt on, is typical, which we always say, like, degree of nakedness in the appropriate place is a good sign of mental illness. Well, now I can't tell that because everybody can claim some sort of a mental health related issue. I'm surprised we haven't moved to the point where, like, hey, I'm committing an armed robbery or a bank robbery. It's because I suffered generational trauma, because I grew up in the inner city and I watched all my friends killed. Like, where does this end? And this case kind of maybe helps with some of that. And you look at all of these things, and back to that woman, she again pulls out the ass baton, because that's the only use of force she's probably effectively been trained on. And the fact is that get out your baton and then try to hit the guy with it. She hits him and it has literally no effect on him. And then what was the funniest thing about the whole thing, what we originally started talking about, the emasculation of men and men stepping back up. The social worker was a male, and he's running around behind her just waving his hands, trying to do things, wearing the vest and everything else. I'm like, my God, all of these roles have reversed. All of these people were told they were doing this work the subject that we're trying to take into custody, the female police officer that did nothing to physically prepare herself and is using a tool that is completely useless on many situations, and the male social worker that was told it's okay to be a beta, you can do this and let the woman do the fighting for you. This is how confused we are. And I know all of this makes people mad, what I'm saying, but the bottom line is, like, watch that video and it's an illustration of how none of this stuff that they're talking about can really ever work. I don't know what the end game was with it. I'm sure the woman had to use way more force than what we wanted to. So she tried to de-escalate. It didn't de-escalate. She now had to severely escalate because she could probably have been overpowered. And the male just stood there running around like the guys that watch fights going on.
Yeah. Waving
with their cameras
out.
Like that's yeah, exactly. Like, and those are the things that you look at and you say, at least, even though people don't have faith in the courts, this is a good decision for once that helps us with that. Because what they said is that, mental health related issues and de-escalation is not a trump card that you can use to waive officer safety. And I don't care what anybody says. It's a thing that we as a profession should find great fault with ourselves about. We said this from the get-go when we were talking about this, when we started this podcast. If we don't stand up and take the narrative or part of the narrative as to what we need to be training on, people that have no idea what's going on and feel guilty about the fact that they're not doing anything to help fix it, or maybe they had a son or a daughter that was these things and they didn't raise them right. These people are all now being players in the world and telling us what we need to train on. All of us have gone through a lot of training with this stuff. CIT comes to mind, crisis intervention training. We're training, like, literally I have to kind of understand in a 40-hour course in a week, things that take clinicians like close to a decade to get really good at and diagnosing what's going on. I don't have the means of giving them a drug to calm them down. I have to be the guy in the short sleeve white shirt from the institution from back in the day that were all closed down and these people were just set out there. And the drug company's going, well, drugs will help fix this. Yeah, but if you're kind of having a mental episode, you don't necessarily show up to the places where you can get your prescriptions. When you show up to the ER, the ER goes, well, what can we do with them? We can say, here's drugs, take these things, here's your prescription, but we got to kick you out because we're not giving you a bed for this. And then the guys back out. But do they get blamed for that? No, we get blamed for that because we have to go there. And now the guy's like, well, hell, I acted up last time. They brought me here. They talked to me nicely. They were all really good to me. They gave me a teddy bear. They gave me medication that I refused to take, and they let me go. So next time I'm going to act even crazier.
Right.
And what I mean crazier, I'm going to be more out of control. And then the force happens and people don't understand it because we just want to use terms like de-escalate and all of these things. Like I said, we've done a ton of other training. We're narrowing it down to specific ailments like autism, like the increase of autism. No one wants to talk about why we went from 1 in like 10,000 100 years ago to 1 in 250 in the 2020, and now in 2024 to 2026, 1 in 31 people, and they're diagnosing everybody with it. Again, that goes back to where's the funding coming from and how schools and institutions can be given money. Again, we're like when Elon Musk came in and said, do we really need to do all this? And he's like, I got to quit because they're threatening my livelihood and life because I'm trying to manage this. We don't have logical like responses to it. And when adults step up and say, this is what we need to do, they're labeled as bigots and sexist and less than compassionate, and they didn't de-escalate and whatever. So I found a lot of confidence in this. I was kind of happy with this because, like I said, what other trainings have we done to do with people that are mentally ill? Like we've been dealing with it, like Chris said, forever. Like you could make the argument right now that some of the best training that we're getting right now for the mentally ill, but we're trying to normalize, is active shooter training. Active shooter training is now like what you consider for ugly men that are trying to transition to become women, and they're killing people because they don't know how to deal with their mental illness. There's case after case after case that we've seen. You can't say that out loud. The media doesn't dare to. You want to blame it on the police. But the bottom line is like we're waiting to the point where it gets that drastic. The guy shows up at the hockey rink, the most recent one, to kill his entire family while his kid's out on the ice playing hockey. I mean, and like he had to be subdued by people that are like, why am I in the middle of this? Why isn't the system working better for this? And this is a great case to kind of maybe, I don't know, get this stuff back on track. But our leaders have to be brave. Right. And we're seeing it, but you're seeing some of them out there that are like the one chief, I think it was in Florida, that was like, we are no longer, or no, it was California. The guy said, the chief was like, or the sheriff was saying, we're not going to go to mental health calls anymore. This is what we're going to be stuck with. We're going to be constantly blamed, sued, and my officers are now going to have to worry about being put in prison.
Right.
We're not going to go to these things.
Right. And this
the rest
was
of the system needs to step up and fix this shit. And that includes parents.
Right.
That includes parents of these kids. Like, you have to put your foot down and make some really tough decisions. And when it goes bad, you can't keep blaming the police, because, you know, Mandami, he went to see in the latest one, the guy that charged them at them with the knife. He didn't go see the cops that had to use the lethal force on this guy. He went to see the guy that pulled the knife on him and chased them down after threatening to kill his own family. This is the problem that we have in this country. And how can cops win?
And this is the kind of the final takeaway on this case, is basically what one of the final summaries that came out of this was essentially that the ADA can require reasonable modification in some government services. It does have a place in certain things. However, it does not require officers to gamble with safety in the face of an armed, objectively dangerous subject having a health crisis. So that's essentially what one of the main determinations was that came out of this. So we'll see where this goes down the road and how this factors into other things, and maybe factors into how police agencies, their tactics and training, who knows. But you're right. I mean, it is something that's beneficial to law enforcement that says, hey, there's a certain point where I can take action because either me or someone around me or someone in the public is going to be severely injured or killed, and I have to take action.
I can't. The more I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about this thing, I'm like, why are we we're the ADA? We're not talking about making a 38-inch doorway for a wheelchair or wheelchair accessible, or something to actually help out with people with a disability. You're getting involved in something that takes an eighth of a second to react. You have to think of yourself. You have to think of your team. You have to think of the public. You have to think of why
we're dealing with.
Yeah. Right. I mean, the guy's got a gun. He's walking into the thing, and we're going to why isn't a judge going, yeah, this isn't going anywhere? I'm sorry he had a mental health issue, but you know what? Even during his mental health issue, he made a choice, and that choice is this. Okay, whether he was in his right mind, and can I ask a question? How do you freaking know that he wasn't in the right mind? How do you know he wasn't choosing to do that? Because what? Because you're a judge, or because you're the wife, or you're the lover, and you're telling me that he's having a mental episode? How in the hell do you know? How in the hell do you know that he wasn't going in there to shoot the place up, and we stopped a mass shooting?
Yeah.
It's tough. If we didn't, we get sued because we dealt with them. We didn't do anything like that.
You're going to be on the hook.
Point earlier, this is the norm. You have a SWAT team to come out, and at a certain point, we go, all right, well, I guess we're just packing up and leaving. Like, we got to leave. And then the neighbors are like, why are you guys leaving? She was out there walking around with knives in her hand. We're like, yeah, but it hasn't really risen to that. And it's just like what we were like during the riots. You feel so helpless as a police officer. You're like, well, this is what they want of us. And I know that potentially one of you could be the human sacrifice for this to change. But the bottom line is, this is how it works. This is how the system works. And people don't like it. But again, they don't pay attention to who they're electing.
But they don't.
Pay attention to policy.
They don't
pay attention to any of this stuff.
So you're telling me, well, I'm going to wait till somebody gets stabbed and then I have to do it, or somebody gets shot and then I could act, because then I, as a policeman, don't have to worry about getting sued or anything else, or I'm going to get sued because I had to take action, but I'm going to be pretty well protected because, well, they shot somebody and then I took action. Like it's preventative. That is the key. And before that happens, but then, you're going to armchair quarterback whatever's going on, and then you're going to make excuses for the people who do shitty things. Like, at some point, we just have to stop, because it's just the world is just it's crazy. People have mental health issues. I get it, but you know what? Then let's address the situation. Just like we were all talked about earlier. Sean and Scott said, there's consequences for your actions, and all. Like, hey, listen. We don't have mental institutions anymore. Well, why don't we reopen those to maybe help some people? Why don't we when you come get your monthly disability check, you have to take, here's your, some type of check-in. No, but we're worried about, using condoms on gorillas in the Congo and giving them tens of millions of dollars instead of taking care of our own people.
I would disagree with you on the mental institution thing, Chris. We still do have them. They're usually called universities or colleges, because that's where a lot of the stuff is fostered. I'm sorry. I mean, it is. I mean, I know that sounds terrible, and people are like, oh, you're closed-minded. But again, I would go back to the idea, obviously.
Unless it's Old Dominion, we're going to beat your ass.
Right. They're going to beat you, except for ODU. Do not go there. I'm going to give anybody a warning that's listening, is getting ideas. They're going to hold you accountable. the thing about that though is that now I'm gonna have to edit this out because I totally brain farted on that. Was great. Wow, I don't know where to go. Holy shit, I just had this idea and that fucking was so funny.
You were on fire, and all of a sudden, no Dominion.
Sorry, I threw off your
I'll edit this
mojo.
whole fucking thing out. But I mean, but the idea of that, like, this is like, we cannot possibly be all of these things that you want us to be,
Right.
while you're still electing people that are like, we don't need to increase your budget. We need to increase the budget of the people that keep me in power. And they also happen to be the people that are largely contributing to a lot of this. Like I hate the police if I'm Brandon Johnson, but I love the teachers union, which see these people as young people forever, like all day. And we've taken away teachers' rights to discipline kids and hold them accountable and make people, feel sorry. The prosecutors that don't hold people accountable throughout their lives, like the numerous times that people are out there, the mental health system itself, like sheepishly, like steps away and lets it all be laid at the feet of police officers. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. And they're being educated in a system that reinforces that the police are generally the problem. They're ham-handed. You're going to these classes and you're like, yeah, this is a great idea. And then they bring in the one instructor that tells you, because they had a family member that was like, fell some way, shape, or form. Often they're like, and if you do this wrong, we're coming after you. We're going to sue you. You just lost that like 30-minute class, just lost the 38 other hours that you were there taking. All the cops go, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to wait till the last possible minute. And when that happens, folks, when cops have to wait till the last possible minute, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot higher level use of force, because they're going to wait till it's completely obvious that something needs to be done to stop this from happening. And then when you do, your leaders will still go out and support the guy that was out of control and didn't ever get the help that he needed, and the family didn't hold him accountable and put their foot down. You want to know where to go to figure all this stuff out? Go to people that are suffering with addictions. Mm-hmm. Families that finally got a family member that was either fixed or it's over will tell you this. You got to put your foot down. You got to hold them accountable. You got to stop enabling, and you got to make it. And it doesn't matter, because addiction is a mental health related issue just as much as anything else. Some of it's physical. I get it. But there are worlds out there that we could go to right now. Talk to anybody that survived addiction, and they'll tell you the same exact thing. It's not a drug. It's not a placebo to help you get over what your problem is. You've got to reach deep down and figure out you need to do it. Well, they're not in the right mental mind for that. Well, then the people around you that care about you, it doesn't take a village. It takes a family in this situation, the people that care about you. Because if you don't have a family, the system will try to take care of you, and you can see what the system does for you. Government is way too big, and there's too many people for us to have to kind of work with to solve these problems. And then you send out the cops to deal with it. And you want to blame the cops because force is ugly. It's always ugly. It has to be ugly, but it has to be done.
Yep. You can crucify the people that go out and take care of your lack of leadership. It just, well, at some point, hopefully, I could kind of see the tides turning a little bit, but it's going to be a slow process. But again, like we've always said, watch your leaders, watch what they're voting for, and make sure they're in line with making sure you have the life that you want. So. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening to our show. It was another great session, boys. Hope your lips are all right, Scott. And by the way, Scott, that shirt, I love it. You got to tell me I like my wife a little bit older. Mm-hmm. Love it. That's good. That's good.
She still looks younger than you. I mean, she still looks younger than you. And from my understanding, she doesn't use as much chapstick as you do. So
right. That's the secret. You gotta moisturize.
Chris Scott rolls the end of it, and it's just a little tiny beanie weenie hot dog that comes out of it, and he just eats that. That's what it is.
That's his prize. He gets the little weenie.
Well, it actually keeps me from smoking. I just hold it like this all the time.
The cool thing about it is, like, when you remember those little things when you were a kid, you adjust it back and forth, and Bucky's like winking at you, like, I got you.
Right.
Yeah. His eyes
anyway, thank you everybody for listening to the show. Please go to where you get your podcast, leave a rating, review, download, subscribe, tell your friends. Also, you can leave us an email, 3copstalk@gmail.com, if you have an idea for the show. Questions, criticisms, questions, concerns, anything, we'll be more than happy to get back to you. You could also go to 3copstalk.com, get old episodes. You can also leave an email there. Again, thank you for listening. Please spread the word to your friends, because we are trying to make the world a better place. This is going to go out after St. Patrick's Day. The last show did. So anyway, have a blessed day, everybody.